Hey y'all. Excuse me. I want to do something a little bit different today. This is only going to be a little bit brief. In fact, I doubt this will take me more than a few minutes. But I wanted to kind of test the waters and see what you guys thought. And I have no doubt that y'all are going to be hating this. But, you know, what am I going to do? I still kind of wanted to get it out there. So, if you'll give me a moment. I know it's brighter than it normally is. And there's a reason for that. And that reason, well, it's because I am failing. No, seriously though, I want to read something to you guys. Now, hopefully I will not flub the words too many times. Lord knows I'm not perfect about that. This is the very first section of the prologue of the story, The Primes, and enough said, really. I admit my writing style is not the best in the world. I don't consider myself, the best writer in the world. When it actually comes down to sitting down and writing, I'm decent at storytelling, but not writing. And so I imagine that this isn't going to be as awesome as it probably could be. But at the very least, I want to at least get it out there and see what you guys think, and see if I should continue. I actually have a decent chunk of the rest of the prologue finished, but that kind of just stops because I'm not done with it yet, so I don't want to do that yet, if you follow me. And on the subject of continued allowances for delays and budgetary increase regarding experimental energy research under the purview of the Renewable Initiative, headed up by Chancellor Cole and presided over by Dr. Albrecht Williams, I would like to open the floor towards multinational sanctions against this heinous waste of time and money. Is the representative from the United States seriously trying to tell this council that solving the entire planet's energy problems for the foreseeable future is a waste of both time and money? Well, perhaps if there were some results, or perhaps a timetable of results, something tangible to explain to the taxpayers where millions of their dollars are being flushed into from more than one country, I might add, then perhaps we might be more inclined to give Dr. Williams more leeway. Technological progress is not a static process, sir. With all due respect. Alfred rubbed the bridge of his nose, fighting off a mixture of boredom and weariness. His shift was almost over, but if Johnny was late again, he'd have to cover until he showed. It was getting frustrating. But he hated dealing with the drama of putting him on report or mentioning it to their boss, so he just kept putting up with it. It's not like he didn't mind the extra time on his check. Still, today of all days, he really wanted to go home. The suits were yammering on in the room behind him, clearly audible through the door he stood guard over, and he found himself getting a bit depressed over it all. He'd been following the renewable initiative for some time now, ever since Chloe first mentioned it to him. The idea of a renewable, clean energy source was vaguely interesting, and something the world could probably use right now. But there was a lot of tension, too, since the worry was, once it was developed, it would only be released within one country, or worse, by just one company, who would then promptly establish an economic dominance with it at their disposal. So everyone was kind of tiptoeing around the subject, trying to keep all the countries involved and all the project on equal footing. Alfred laughed to himself. It really amused him that such an engaging and world-impacting decision could sound so mind-numbingly boring when fed through the mouths of politicians. He'd been keeping an idle ear on the debate for the past several hours now, and he was pretty sure that, past their first sentence, they hadn't actually said one thing the entire time. A rumble jostled him from his lean against the wall, and he frowned, looking around. But it didn't repeat himself, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Still, Alfred believed in being cautious, so he flipped his two-way. Sentry 512 reporting in. I just felt a small tremor in the building. Anything out of the ordinary going on? There was a pause on the other end, a bit longer than it should have been. He frowned and was about to reactivate it when a voice came over. Yeah, we're having some trouble getting hold of Laura and Darren's, Al. If they take any longer, I'm gonna have you head down and check it out yourself. You understand? His frown deepened. Yeah, 10-4. I'll keep an eye out for now. He didn't really care much for the new kids who ran the front entryway. They'd been hired for their looks and their smile, wanting to put on a good show for the public. It wasn't until you got further in and up within the building that you had the real guards, like himself. Alfred allowed a grin to settle on his features. They're probably just messing around somewhere, forgot to check in at the quarter, he thought to himself. Nothing to be worried about. A second tremor shook the room, stronger, and this time he heard a strange sound, very dissonant, and he wasn't quite able to figure out what it was. What in the world? The twin doors at the base of the stairs in front of him swung open, and a very tall man was standing there. He couldn't quite make sense of what he was seeing at first. The guy was wrapped in some loose clothes, several of which were trailing behind him in just kind of tattered rags, as he began walking up the stairs both slowly and deliberately. His face was completely concealed in some kind of helmet which looked a little ridiculous once Alfred got a good look at it. Seemed more suited to Renfest than casual attire. And the guy was dragging a very long, broken, tinted black sword behind him, making a steady scraping noise as it went. Alfred blinked, realizing he still had a job to do, and whoever this nutjob was, he wasn't going to let him disturb the proceedings. "I'm sorry, sir, I'm going to have to ask you to stop. This is a restricted area." The figure didn't even slow down, nor look at him for that matter, although it was kind of hard to tell with that helmet in the way. Alfred sighed, probably some dipwit trying to make a statement about politics, and thought that dressing up like this was the best way to go. As much as he would actually enjoy seeing the suits get distracted by Mr. Costume here, he wanted to keep getting his paycheck every week, so he uncinched his taser and raised it directly at the guy. "Sir, I'm going to give you one last warning. If you don't stop, I will have to injure you." Movement. There was an abrupt dullness in his chest, like all the feeling had drained out of it, and it was very difficult to breathe all of a sudden. His eyes caught up with his mind, and he saw the long sword being pulled out of his chest, the figure not even slowing down in his pace, nor otherwise acknowledging Alfred as he walked blithely on. Unable to support himself, Alfred crumbled to the floor, gasping out what he was quickly realizing were his last breaths. He didn't understand. He'd done his job, taken care of his family, paid his taxes, he was friendly, neighborly. Why him? As an empty darkness slowly settled around him, a thought whispered in the very back of his mind, the last thing he would ever think. Maybe I just didn't matter. And that's it. That's the first section. 6 minutes. I didn't think that would take long. I do plan on uploading an actual video tonight, because a 6-minute video just doesn't cut it for me, does it? But again, I'm curious what you guys think, positive and negative, as long as it's constructive. And let me know.